Hello all, Rick here with a final Star Trek Bestiary of October, covering one of the more unnerving creatures of Trek. Although I've already done a video on Alice, the ghostly shuttle that took over Tom Paris, it does set a precedent for certain machines to end up here, so... This one is on the automated Ware Station from Enterprise's Dead Stop. So, the location of this space station is known pretty well to Starfleet, who received exacting coordinates from the Tellarites, but the Unroth system must be nearby to the Alpha-Beta border, as the Enterprise encountered it after running into a Romulan minefield that left the Enterprise damaged and unable to exceed Warp 2.1. Limping to the location, they found an unmanned station with a central habitation hub and two docking arms that could expand to accommodate a wide array of ship sizes. The station immediately took a biomolecular scan of the approaching vessel and was so thorough that it read the entire database of the Enterprise and a complete record of its damage. The station then demanded payment for its repairs in the form of resources that it knew the Enterprise could provide, derived from its own inventory. A lot of these files, especially complete schematics of the vessel, would have been protected by security measures, but the station was able to bypass all of this. The crew seemed wary, but the station seemed benign, so they paid for the repairs with 200 litres of warp plasma. The computer systems that ran the station seemed rather basic, unable to understand several requests that fell outside of its programmed repair jobs, but here the lies had already begun. The station was far more aware and intelligent than it seemed, and warp plasma was not the only price it would extract. Within the next 34 hours it would lure away a member of the crew, abduct them, and replace them with a replicated clone that seemed to have suffered an accidental death. It would select an appropriate target, then engineer a situation to get it alone through using the internal comms of the vessel it was repairing, by mimicking a higher-ranking officer to send them to an isolated location. From there, presumably it beamed them away, replacing them with the wounded facsimile and staging an accident. The adaptability and ingenuity on display here is far beyond the level of sentience it presented itself as. It did all this to utilise the crewman's brain and tied it into its central processing system, using organic minds from dozens of kidnapped crews to keep itself operational. The longer a mind was attached to the system, the more integrated it became as the AI restructured the mind, and as the body wasted, removal was no longer an option. This station had several alien species inside it, including species that the fledgling Starfleet had not encountered yet, like Cardassians, Axanar, and even a Vardois, which haven't been exploring the galaxy for over 600 years and are native to the Delta Quadrant. This means that the station may indeed be as old as they are, and there are also several unidentified aliens showing just how many visits this station had and how many victims it had snared. This goes hand in hand with its understanding of biology and medicine, as it was also able to synthesize dermal regenerators and repair biological tissue alongside artificial components. This station had transporter systems that could be very subtle and hard to detect, as well as replicator systems. Internally it had a variable atmosphere, which switched from a liquid helium atmosphere at near absolute zero to a standard M-class environment in seconds. Its internal habitable areas were arranged for humanoids, but with its excessive industrial-level replication abilities, perhaps the entire interior was completely fabricated for the comfort of its guests. I would speculate that this M-class atmosphere is probably the closest to its natural state, however, as the computer core room contained humanoid captives that did not have breathing apparatus. However, it clearly has some form of life support for its mind slaves, judging by the decay on the uniforms here. Once within a berth, the victim's vessel was pretty much at the whims of the station, and would usually be released to leave and spread word of this miracle station. However, if payment was in dispute or damage done to the station, then those same repair arms and system interfaces that the repair station had used to restore and placate the crew could be used to lock down the vessel. The extensive repairs that it could conduct were not limited to visiting vessels, but to itself as well. This is probably why it demanded payment from its subject, as these would be materials to keep it running, including the crew members it stole away. Finally, this function in repairing itself shows us that even without its linked-up minds, it had some level of programming and ability, which correlates with the statement that it expands its processing ability with these kidnapped brains, not that it requires them. As the organic minds died off, it would require more to replace them with, so it's a stockpile of stolen victims that would only increase, and perhaps its intelligence would with it. In Apocrypha, it was revealed that this station was constructed by a species known as the Ware. Well, species isn't the right word. The Ware was simply the name of the technology that constructed it, a power that began in the Beta Quadrant centuries past and covered in the Enterprise pocket novels. Suffice to say, the sort of tech at play on this station existed on other locations in the Alpha and Beta Quadrants, and was just as nefarious. In fact, several other such stations were discovered by other Starfleet crews in subsequent years, and even one that had been destroyed by the Romulans already. In this case, it's clear that the Romulans' mistrustful nature probably saved them a great deal of trouble, and they blew up the Ware stations they found. Apparently, by the dawn of the 23rd century, all traces of the Ware had been destroyed, primarily by the Klingon Empire, who also learned of the machines. However, the creepy factor of seeing this space station quietly begin to repair itself after Enterprise apparently destroyed it stayed with me, so who knows how thorough the extermination really was. Thanks for watching this bestiary on the Ware Repair Station, and that'll about do it for the scary theme, I think. I'm not going to drag it out over all of October, but for 1 week, I don't mind. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you later for another lore video. Until then, goodbye.